Hey guys, SuperHorrorBro Mike here, and in today's video we take a second look at the My Friendly Neighborhood demo and elaborate on a theory I briefly covered in our last story-themed video for the game. Previously, I took a look at the evidence on show within the MFN demo and explored the concept that these puppets may contain human souls. Now, while there is evidence that hints at this, the more I thought on it, the more I feel the second theory briefly touched on at the end of that video is more likely. The idea that these puppets were robotic creations with advanced AI, who have become sentient and corrupted by the environment around them and their treatment by the staff. I'm going to assume those watching this video have already checked out part 1, so I won't be going back over the story premise and puppets' voice lines analysed in that video. Part 1 is worth checking out for both this key information and an interesting alternative to the theory posed in this follow-up. With that said, sit back, relax, and let's look at the other side of a coin in part 2 of our My Friendly Neighborhood speculation discussion. There is a wealth of evidence contained within the My Friendly Neighborhood demo pointing to these puppets being the result of something manufactured, such as a robot running some kind of artificial intelligence software. One of the most basic pieces of evidence to support the theory that these puppets are man-made is our protagonist Gordon's reaction to them. While he seems to have a chip on his shoulder for these puppets, Gordon finds their presence in the game world in no way out of the ordinary. This tells us that in the world MFN takes place in, living puppet technology is in fact very normal. In this regard, the game world is similar to that found within movies like The Muppets or Who Framed Roger Rabbit, where humans and puppets or cartoons coexist. However, these puppets are definitely man-made to some degree. We see rows of Norman puppets hanging in this storage room, as well as one laying on the desktop in this corridor here. This tells us that these puppets absolutely have a powered down state, and therefore require the booting of some kind of AI software to wake them into existence. It does seem as though once these puppets are activated, they are either hard to turn back off or simply designed to be left in a functional state. If their artificial intelligence is organic and constantly evolving and learning, growing more aware and sentient with each passing day, then this would make sense. The studio creates a simple AI which evolves and advances with each passing day, absorbing new information and becoming more aware. This allowing for the puppets to behave almost like living entities and appear extremely lifelike to the children who visited them at the studio, as well as those they entertained through television screens across the globe. Further evidence of these puppets being pre-programmed to some degree can be found when analysing their dialogue. Each puppet says the same basic lines, as if reciting them from a script stored in their databanks. Take a listen.
When I'm feeling happy, I eat watermelon. When I'm sad, I eat leftovers. When I'm confused, I eat roadkill outside. Now, take one of your hands, put it in your mouth, and swallow as hard as you can. Now you have one hand inside your mouth and one hand outside.
However, there are slight differences in these lines depending on the puppet in question. And not only that, each puppet also has a few lines exclusively associated with them. For example, Junebug speaks about responsibility as a child, which is a dialogue exclusive to her character.
I used to be responsible, but then I figured out that instead of being responsible, I could just eat gravel instead.
The puppet lines are mostly educational in nature. This makes sense considering they performed as part of a children's educational TV show, but much of what they say isn't very family friendly. They have developed violent thoughts and teach dangerous lessons, such as how to eat gravel or swallow one's own hands. How did this happen? Well, let's take a look at our next set of evidence. When looking at this Studio Rules poster, we are given a host of valuable information about how these puppets functioned and their personalities. Human handlers were assigned to monitor these puppets, as it sounds like they could easily get out of control and become hazardous. The puppets were naturally childlike and overly friendly as part of their core programming, and due to the machine learning within them, it seems they very quickly became overstimulated and mischievous. They would mess about with dangerous items found around the set of the MFN show, and could even break equipment if not monitored by their handler. We see examples of the TV show crew members taking extra steps to keep the puppets away from things they shouldn't be touching in these notes posted around the basement. Most sinister of all, while puppets had good intentions, their creators seemed to be aware they could pose a threat to the children who visited the studio. Perhaps, much as with their interactions with Gordon, they would become over-enthusiastic upon seeing a child and charge toward them, offering up friendship, but ultimately harming them in the process.
I want to make new friends! New friends sound very... Who are you? Why are you...
When listening to Norman's dialogue, he seemingly recalls a traumatic event associated with noticing the children.
Well, it's time for, what does Norman notice? Oh, let's see here. What does Norman notice? Now, I notice, cameras, lights, producers, children. Notice the children. Norman has noticed. Norman has noticed.
It seems a terrible accident occurred at this studio, and the memory then lay dormant within the AI hive mind of these puppets, haunting them over time, the trauma now influencing their unhinged nature. This seems very likely and something we are sure to learn more about when the full game launches later this year. I have a feeling this story is going to take some decidedly dark turns before the curtain closes. When listening to a conversation between sock puppet Ricky and Gordon at the beginning of the game, we discover that the puppets have indeed become more aggressive over time.
I would hide again.
What is it this time?
Well, Ray, of course. He's the best sort of monster janitor thing, but he doesn't like it when people intrude on his territory. Tends to get a bit grouchy. One might say, assault happy?
Great. Are all of you puppets crazy?
Well, Ray has always been a little grouchy, even before the shutdown. That's why they moved him down here.
But where did this aggression come from? Why are the puppets now fixated on dark subject matter such as drawing the international biohazard sign or eating roadkill? Well, much like children who can become a product of their environment, these easily influenced sentient robots seem to have soaked up the negativity and abuse they experienced, corrupting their friendly nature. As this poster states, the light is leaving all of us. You see, while the rules of the studio clearly state, be friendly to your neighbours, it is evident that not all of the staff followed these guidelines. When reading this note written by technician Hank, we learn that he created a number of props for use in the MFN show. His most recent invention is a shotgun known as the Novelist, which he gleefully used on the Norman puppets, bouncing them about the studio. This may have seemed like harmless fun to the humans, but likely distressed the puppets and taught them that violence is fun and acceptable, when of course it is not.
First, I beat him to the ground. Then I stomped his face. Then we started laughing at each other, and everything was okay.
We also hear from a crew member called Julia, who wrote to her friend Benny discussing how violent the city had become in recent years. That the neighbourhood felt like the only safe place. My Friendly Neighbourhood was a show created to transmit joy and happiness to what sounds like a cold and hostile outside world. So if the humans working at the studio brought in the harsh influence of the world outside, it is plausible the puppets once again picked up bad habits from them. As discussed in our previous video, the element most damaging to these sentient puppets was isolation and loneliness. We hear these puppets yearning for companionship and freedom.
And for me, your bestest friend, you can just bring a friend. All I need is a friend.
How? Oh, just get me out of here. That's right. Grab your dad's toolbox, take the hammer, and crack that TV screen right open. Go ahead. You have no idea how many friends are in here. Oh, sure is lonely these days. Maybe I can talk to my Echo.
After the cancellation of their show, the puppets were locked away and left to their own devices. Their confinement for years within the abandoned studio, denied of their purpose in life to spread joy and entertain, sent these puppets stir crazy. A lethal cocktail of violent abuse, negative thoughts in the workplace, and years of isolation all led to the self-learning AI of these puppets warping and twisting into something far darker and more sinister than originally intended. The light is indeed leaving them all, and it is now up to Gordon and us the player to discover the source of the corruption and why this old TV studio has flickered back to life. And with that, we have come to the end of part 2 of our theories and speculation for My Friendly Neighborhood. I wanted to follow up part 1 with a more detailed look at this theory, as I felt I didn't allow it enough room in the previous video. This will conclude our coverage of MFN until closer to release, but I do hope you'll come back and join me when we take our adventure through the finished game. If you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like, comments down below, and of course subscribe for more horror related content. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next video.